All right. Today, we've got another episode for you, the Brower Brothers podcast. As always, we're going to be talking Jazz basketball. More specifically, we've got the games to cover from this last week. We've got the Pacers, we've got the Heat, both losses, and then we've got a win against the depleted 76ers team. Game tonight coming up. We'll also get into that. And things we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about the fight with the Pacers, the fight, right? The fight with the Pacers.
The grabbing and hugging.
Yeah, the fight with the Pacers. We're going to be talking about why we think the Jazz are losing and what they need to do to turn this season around and become a contender. That's what we're all going to be covering today, so make sure you stay tuned. Before we do, though, again, a reminder, right now we're trying to raise donations for hashtag WyattOurWarrior. The way we're doing that, if you hit that subscribe button, for every subscriber we gain between, I think it was like October when we started doing this, October through the end of the year, we will donate $1 towards Wyatt and his recovery. So please hit that subscribe button. It's for a good cause, as well as then you'll be notified and you'll be made aware as to when our new releases come out each week, as we're talking all things Jazz. So hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. All right, so getting to our first game, Dylan. First game against the Pacers. Jazz lose 111-100. Home floor. What were you saying, Dylan? What were you saying about this one?
About this fight?
No, it was about, wasn't this our first loss or something?
Oh, first loss at home.
First loss at home. Jazz don't lose at home. One of the loudest arenas in the NBA. And, we blow it. We just blow it. Like, I look at this game, we led for a little bit in the first quarter and for a very, very small, brief moment in the second. Other than that, man, the Pacers just dominated us.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic, some of the guys that they let go off. Malcolm Brogdon, good player. 30 points, though. He's not 30 points good, in my opinion.
No, I agree. He's a decent player, but I wonder if on most NBA teams, if that guy's even starting at point guard.
Yeah. And so he drops 30, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Myles Turner, who's actually I don't think is bad. They give 13 points, 9 rebounds. You know, Rudy did good there in that matchup. But then coming off the bench, why don't you tell them about that?
About TJ McConnell.
TJ McConnell.
I don't know how you let that guy go for 21 points. I mean, he's NBA talent, right? Like, all guys in the NBA are good. All guys in the NBA are way better than I could ever dream to be. But you let that guy go for 21 points on 14 shots, and he only shot 1 3. Like,
not to mention 8 rebounds and 5 assists.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to dive into here. I mean, on the rebound side, the 8 rebounds, he and Brogdon had 8 offensive rebounds between the two of them. You let the two smallest guys on the Pacers team get 8 offensive rebounds on you. How in the world do you let that happen?
Well, and I want to talk more about this too as we get into the Heat game, as well as even the 76ers game. The just lack of effort that we've seen from the Utah Jazz defensively is pretty bad this year. In the past, we've seen the Jazz as this, underdog team that's, fights
got
to
some
win.
Grit and some fight.
Yeah. And this year, you just haven't seen that. And I think a lot of it has to do with, this sounds dumb, pride. Like, you get on the court and it's, we were the number 1 seed last year. We're better than all these teams. We don't have to put forth as much effort. But like you said, every team has NBA talent on them. Any given night, that's a nice thing about basketball too. Even in March Madness, any team can beat any team. Some teams get hot. But especially in the NBA with NBA talent, you got to show up to play every night if you want to win.
Yeah. I mean, so looking at these numbers, and like you said, I think these numbers all come down to effort. It just comes down to effort. We gave up 53 rebounds to the Pacers. We only rebounded 37 times, so it's at a difference 16, right?
Yeah.
16-point differential or 16 rebound differential. Let me rephrase that so this actually makes sense. Plus 16 for the Pacers on the rebounds. The other killer is that they had 15 offensive rebounds. That's a killer. and then they had 5 blocks as well. We committed 12 turnovers. So
turnovers wise, like that's a good game.
Yeah.
And the shooting percentage, the Jazz shot 47% from the field, 28% from 3,
which is
not
lower
great,
lower than our average.
But you should still be able to beat the team you're playing with how they shot, the stats they have. But again, they just are lacking effort. I mean, 12 turnovers in a game, great. Shooting wise, they didn't shoot bad. I think the Jazz should fully expect to beat a team with the stats they have.
If you shoot 47% from the field, you should be okay. But the thing that's crazy to me is we shoot 47% from the field that game. However, Donovan has 26, Rudy has 19, and Clarkson has 11. Those were the only guys we had in double figures.
Yeah.
This is the first game that I actually felt like Mike Conley didn't show up, that I felt like he was a disappointment. He had 8 assists, which is a great number, but he only had 6 points, and the kicker on those 6 points is he only took 6 shots.
Yeah.
Like he's just got to be more involved, more aggressive on the offensive side of the ball if we're going to win games.
I think, and again, moving forward, a lot of these games we're playing are just not that important. The problem is, are the Jazz going to fix this issue of not showing up to play?
Yeah. Quin Snyder said it, I think, after the Heat game. He said, we are not consistent. We have yet to put together 4 quarters of basketball. It's like one quarter we look great, the next all of a sudden we get, there's a point differential of 20 points in the next quarter.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some consistency, and I think all of that, I think the talent on the team is there. It's the mental toughness and the fortitude to say, hey, I'm going to be dialed in for the next 48 minutes, and we're going to go out there and we're going to get this thing done.
Yeah. And the problem is, too, I don't think there's a single player in the Jazz that's consistent for 48 minutes. That needs to change.
Yeah.
But there's a couple players in particular who are so inconsistent defensively. And I don't even want to say inconsistent. I just mean liabilities.
Yeah.
There's a difference there. There's such a liability defensively that it creates a huge problem for the Jazz defensively. And I think all of this boils down to defense. I think, the Jazz haven't been shooting well in some games. They're pretty inconsistent from, an offensive perspective. But that comes and goes. And that happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the worst I've seen the Jazz defensively in a while.
Yeah, no, I agree. So really the only interesting thing that happened this whole game was the fight.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it was just that the Jazz players that got ejected. Well, so first let's watch this, right? So we watch this play. Rudy Gobert catches the ball, goes up. Turner blocks him, right? He just blocks him. Rudy claims...
Did Turner even get any ball on that?
I think so.
It was just a horrible layup.
Yeah. Seems he got ball. Rudy says he fouled him. I think Rudy's a baby for saying he fouled him. Even if he did foul him, maybe barely. Maybe he brushed him. Anyway, Gobert says he fouls him. Because he fouls him, Gobert pulls Turner to the ground. Rudy admitted that in the post game, that he grabbed Turner's shorts and pulled him to the ground because he didn't like it. Continues on, whatever, camera angle, we can't see much. But then all of a sudden it flashes to Gobert and Turner having what Charles Barkley says, this ain't a fight, that's a snuggle fest.
They're just grabbing each other's forearms and are just tugging on each other.
I know. But I think one of my favorite things is as this is all happening and going down, everybody's at the other end of the floor. They see what's happening. They come bulldozing in, and Joe Ingles just comes in and takes out the ref.
He sees this as an opportunity of, payback.
Yeah. Joe's like, here is the chance for me to take out my aggression on every bad ref that I've ever had in my life.
Well, and I am so confused at what his mindset was of shoving the ref.
Yeah.
The ref's just very tentatively trying to just keep them apart. In no way is the ref even, I don't know.
One thing that's funny though is you look at when this happens, And the ref, after he gets shoved to come over and grab Joe, he's got a smile on his face.
Yeah, I saw that.
You totally see that the ref's like, oh, I'm throwing you out.
Yeah.
He totally knows that that's coming. And then, of course, Donovan Mitchell gets into it at the end. He ends up not, he just keeps going, keeps yelling. He won't go to the bench, right? Which, again, I think it's Donovan where he's basically like, I'm done. I'm super frustrated. He didn't care to continue to play that game, right? He's just like, I'm going to keep yelling here until they throw me out.
Yeah.
So those three get ejected. Turner gets ejected after the game. Turner and Gobert talk about the fight. Gobert says that, he didn't throw any punches because he doesn't think he thinks they should be professionals on the basketball floor. But he says, I'm easily reached if anybody wants to fight. Let's fight outside of the arena. Myles Turner versus Gobert.
Myles Turner is winning that.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Gobert may have the reach. Gobert claims he's pretty tough, but based on the way I see him take the ball up so weakly and rebound,
I don't think we're
weakly.
allowed to mention what his nickname is in the locker room, right?
Yeah, no.
But let's just say, I don't think there's a whole lot of respect for him when it comes to like toughness.
No, Rudy Gobert is not a tough guy. He acts it, but he's not. Yeah, I take Myles Turner in that fight all day.
Although I don't think Myles Turner is a tough guy either.
No,
I think he's pretty soft. They like pan over to Myles Turner. Number one, he has the weirdest look on his face when he's looking over at Rudy. That doesn't look like a face who wants to fight. Again, going back to the snugglefest with Charles Barkley, I was like, what are you doing, man? Anyways, Myles Turner, I think, is pretty soft as well. He's like a 7-footer who's pretty athletic, and he's pretty bad. There are very few tough big guys in the NBA right now.
Who is the one guy that you would not want to fight in the NBA?
Are we talking about big guys or like any guy?
Any guy. Any person in the NBA that you would not want to fight.
I feel like Giannis would be pretty mean.
Okay. I can see that. And
Jimmy Butler would be pretty hood. Like
that's what I was going to say. I would be terrified of Jimmy Butler because I think that guy's just crazy.
Yeah.
Like he's just flat out crazy.
Yeah.
I would not want to fight that guy.
And I see a lot of people online like, oh, Jokic, like he's from like Serbia, like he's going to be, or Croatia. I don't know.
He's a freaking
is it
teddy
Serbia
bear.
or Croatia? I can't remember.
Yeah,
anyways,
he's a teddy bear.
Like, yeah, everybody's like, oh, he's so like tough. He's in the mob, like mafia. I'm like, dude, he's a sissy too. Like they're talking about him getting in fights and stuff. Like his brothers look scary. Have you seen his family?
No.
Oh man, his brothers, but like, they're not those guys I feel like that would like get in a fist fight and like it'd be scary and stuff. They're just guys that are going to like pull up with guns and kill you.
Yeah. I think the same thing about like Willie Cauley-Stein.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that you would go to like fist fight and all of a sudden he's going to pull out a knife and just
you're like, well, that's just dumb.
All right. Moving on. I actually do want to hear the comments though. Whoever you would not want to fight in the NBA. Who do you not want to fight in the NBA? Leave it in the comments. I want to hear and see.
I'm going to be very disappointed if I see anybody put LeBron James on there.
Yeah. There's probably some guys we're forgetting that we wouldn't want to fight. But
I feel like Ben Simmons would probably be pretty scary to fight.
He's probably middle of my list.
Really?
Yes.
I just think he's kind of a head case and would... He would beat you in the fight, and you'd be like, all right, and he'd just keep going until
you know who I wouldn't want to fight?
Who?
Raul Neto. I'm just kidding. Trey Burke.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Jazz suck against the Pacers. Jazz suck against the Heat. There's a point in the Heat game that we're almost down 30 points at the end of the third quarter that carries on through the fourth. They end up going on this crazy run at the end of the game and have a chance at the last second.
Jordan Clarkson, Donovan Mitchell.
To hit it.
Yeah.
But it just, that game, like, I know the final score, they only end up losing by 6, but that game was ugly.
Well, so, and again, people are going to hate me for just bashing on Bogdanovich all the time. So, lose my mouse here.
Easy.
I'm getting really passionate. So, I talked about defensive liabilities a second ago. Bogdanovich and Joe Ingles are the biggest liabilities defensively for the Jazz.
Yeah.
Jordan Clarkson is not a great defender, but he's not horrible and puts forth enough effort defensively that I do think he does pretty well. I think he's actually bashed on too much for his, defense, but I don't think he's that bad. Joe Ingles, though, and Bogdanovich, horrible defensively. Only 3 guys to be in the positive and that plus minus in that Heat game are Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and Jordan Clarkson. Okay, 14 points for Gobert. He's a +8. 14 points, 13 rebounds. Pretty good game. Jordan Clarkson, 25 points. Doesn't shoot great from 3, 4 for 13, but he's a +5. And then Donovan Mitchell, 22 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Shoots okay. He's a +5 as well. But then we go to guys like Mike Conley has a horrible game.
Mm-hmm.
But Bogdanovich is the next, he's the leading scorer in that game, and he's a -7.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, okay, how are you a -7 and the leading scorer in the game? It's defense.
Mm-hmm.
That is just, you have to be so bad defensively to be a -7 and score 26 points.
Yeah.
And shoot pretty well from the field too.
The other thing on this game too, like you're talking about defense, we give up. You let the Heat's 3 little guys, Hero, Lowry, and Robinson, all go for more than 20. Like, if you shut down those guys and keep them to their averages, then you win the game.
Well, and I think Duncan Robinson, that's Bogdanovich's matchup, right? For the most part. Hero, Robinson, you know what I mean?
Yeah, depending on who the Heat had on the floor at that time.
Yeah, well, and I guess he's probably on PJ Tucker.
There's lots of switching and stuff too, though.
It's just bad how often we talk about this, of these no-name, and they're not no-name guys, but they're not superstars by any means.
No.
And we're letting them go off for 27, 22, and 21 points. And Lowry, 21 points, that's manageable.
Yeah.
But you can't let Hero and Robinson go for 27 and 22 as well.
So here's another thing that I'm just realizing, though. Hero only went 1 for 7 from the 3, man. So his 27 points are dominating us in the mid-range, because I don't think he had a few layups, but it wasn't all paints at the rim, points in the paint. Paints at the rim. Dude, I'm struggling today.
Well,
anyway,
it's the same thing.
It goes back to like Levine and DeRozan.
I was just going to say that. Yeah,
we get dominated in the mid-range.
It's because our guards are so used to just like not having to play defense, letting them just funnel right to Rudy Gobert. But
players that don't go all the way to Rudy and are good enough to pull up at the mid-range.
Pull up in the mid-range, wide open,
tear us up.
Easy jump shot. Yep, easy 15-footer.
Tear us up. So yeah, Heat game. I mean, they don't even have Jimmy Butler play. That was a bad loss too. I know the Heat are a decent team. They've got the same record as us, whatnot.
But they're in the East.
Yeah, they're in the East, and I just don't think they're that good that we should have struggled that much. So that was frustrating. That was super frustrating to watch. Clarkson seemed to be hitting, but man, that guy's a roller coaster ride when it comes to his shot right now. Some games it's like, oh, he's back, we're good, and then the next game you're like,
well, I think a lot of inconsistency offensively stems from inconsistency defensively. The Jazz are at their best when they're getting stops on defense and then just taking off. Okay, Jordan Clarkson, great in fast break transition threes, right?
Yeah.
Bogdanovich is the same. I think the Jazz are at their best when they get a rebound or steal and are going downhill on the offensive end.
Yeah, that's where most of Bogey's points came against the Heat, is when he was right there, like I said, end of the fourth quarter. Yeah, well, end of the fourth quarter, there was nothing else to do. You may as well start jacking up shots. So he was getting them and shooting them within the first 5 seconds of the shot clock, just running down the floor, pull up 3. And he hit like 4 in a row.
Well, and we go to the 76ers game. Jazz kill the Sixers. Sixers suck. They should have anybody. Yeah.
I mean, Ben Simmons isn't playing right now. Who knows what's going on with that? Joel Embiid is out due to COVID protocol, so they don't have him. I mean, they didn't have anybody.
No, and so they should fully expect to win that game. Mm-hmm. They do. I think they play well, but it's that same thing of what did they do differently? And defensively, and I don't think they necessarily stepped up defensively. I just think the Sixers are bad offensively.
Yeah.
And so, but they're able to get defensive rebounds, take off down the court, and you look at the shooting percentage for that game, We're 42% from three, 50% from the field. And we have guys like Bogdanovich, who goes 5 for 7 from three. Conley's 2 for 4. Mitchell's 1 for 3.
I mean, we shoot 42% from the three.
Which is
game.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And so there is just a huge difference when we are holding these teams to less than 100 points. And I think that's a big deal. Holding to teams at less than 100 points and are able to get defensive rebounds and then transition-wise run down the court, and we're getting a lot of open shots.
Yeah.
And the Jazz, 50 defensive rebounds against the Sixers compared to, a 26 against the Heat.
Yeah. Here's some numbers for you, too.
30 against the Pacers.
Yeah. Here's some numbers for you. Jordan Clarkson, talk about being aggressive with your shot. 20 minutes, had 20 points with 20 shots. I put up a shot a minute.
Works for him.
Yeah. One assist. Does that come as a surprise?
Yeah. Hey, he's filling his role. I'm not mad about that.
Yeah,
7 rebounds.
Yeah. The other thing that was awesome about this game, too, is the blocks. The Jazz have 8 blocks this game.
Yeah. 9 turnovers. Fantastic. And here's another sign of when I say the Jazz, I don't think they necessarily stepped up defensively against the Sixers. Sixers turned the ball over 8 times. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I think they're bad offensively.
They just couldn't hit anything.
They shot 20% from 3 and 36% from the field, and that has nothing to do with the Jazz being good defensively that game.
I think there was a lot of altered shots at the rim, but
that's really every game.
Just didn't
but
shoot the ball well.
Anyways, if the Jazz want to be the team that makes it to the Western Conference Finals this year, there's got to be consistency defensively. Yeah. And those guys, Joe Ingles and Bogdanovich, with how many minutes they're getting, cannot continue to be a liability defensively.
Yeah, I agree with that. So moving on then, because, it's before we even started filming this one today, like we were talking about it and we were like, there's not a lot to talk about, even though the Jazz beat the Sixers, they should have. But there's not a lot to talk about these last 3 games because the Jazz have just sucked.
Yeah.
Like, they've just sucked. So they've got to find a way to turn it around. They've got Toronto tonight. Again, for those of you who are new to the show, just watching, we film these on Thursdays to make sure we have time to get them released on Fridays. So looking at that matchup against Toronto's a game below 500. We're at home. Can the Jazz start to put together a stretch here? We go Toronto, then we are at Sacramento, bad Sacramento team. Then we've got Memphis at home, then we're at OKC. So those are going to be our next 4 games that we'll cover next week. I look at those 4 games and I think there is no reason that if the Jazz are the team they were last year that they don't win those 4 games. However, I don't feel like I can confidently say that the Jazz are going to be that team for the next 4 games because they're so inconsistent. So Dylan, how do they gain the consistency?
That's just defense, showing up to play. I think there's a lot of guys who think their role is just offense. Bogdanovich, number 1.
Yeah.
Again, if anybody disagrees with me, I want you to go to that 76ers game and watch the full game highlights. So that just shows all the points being scored in the game. And watch on, when the Jazz are on defense, especially in that first half, well, for the whole game, watch whose fault it is, who's scoring. Okay. Yeah. Like you said, there's a lot of switches, so we can't just blame it on one guy. But look at who is the one that's being the most liable on the Jazz defensively, and it's Bogdanovich. I mean, you watch that, and I think the first 12 points are his fault on defense.
Yeah. So if he ends up playing defense like he should, do the Jazz win the next 4?
Oh yeah, I think the Jazz.
Is he capable of that?
I think the Jazz are top 3 team in the NBA for sure.
Okay.
I think the Jazz the expectation should be to go to the Western Conference Finals, if not win in the Western Conference Finals, make it to the finals. The problem is, like you said, inconsistency, and I think it all starts defensively. The Jazz just are so unreliable.
Yeah. So you're Quin Snyder, you're coaching, you're trying to get them prepped for the coming week. What are you saying to them? What are you saying to these teams? Because I think it's hard to tell, a bunch of grown men.
That's what I was going to say. It's easy for me when I'm, a high school coach. I go to my team, you yell at them, you get them fired up or whatever. If they don't play well, you yank them, you throw them on the bench, whatever it is to get them motivated. These are fully grown men who are, the best players in the world, and you're trying to yell at them to get them to play defense. It's a lot more difficult than just, a speech or whatever.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think it comes down to, do we need to trade?
Yeah.
A few of these guys.
Yeah. Well, and I think it'll be interesting. So a couple points I want to make that intrigue me. Over the next 10 games, the Jazz only play one team above 500 as it sits today. They only play one team above 500. The Jazz should have a 10-game winning streak, in my opinion. As far as do trades need to happen, I think the next 10 games will be very telling. I think minutes are going to be very telling as Rudy Gay starts to make his return. We could see him tonight. He's listed as probable now. And so I hope we see him. However, who knows if he's on a minute restriction or what kind of minute restriction he's going to be on, things of that nature, right? But I would hope that with Rudy Gay's return, I don't think Rudy Gay's coming in and taking like 20 minutes a game.
No, they're going to ease into it.
They're going to ease into it. And even at the end of the season, I don't think he has 20 minutes a game. However, I hope that Rudy Gay is not taking Pascal's minutes. I hope he's taking Joe and Bogdanovic's minutes.
Especially Joe. So Bogdanovich, at least offensively,
yeah, there's some contribution there.
Yeah.
I hate how much he turns it over. I hate his basketball IQ, but he puts up points.
Yeah. And so, again, I bash on him a lot. Offensively, I think he's decent. Again, IQ-wise, he takes some bad shots. He forces a lot of things. But Joe Ingles, he's not even good offensively anymore.
Yeah, Joe.
He gets an open look. He is very consistent from three when he's open. But it doesn't happen very often because, number one, teams know who he is now. Like when he, a few years ago, he was nobody. Teams would sag off. That's why he looked so good. Teams know who he is now, what he can do, and he can't create for himself offensively. I think he's not good offensively. He's terrible defensively now. I think Rudy Gay's got to replace Joe Ingles.
Yeah. The only thing that Joe has done good over the last 3 games over this stretch that we've been talking
Assists.
about. He had, but
he's passed the ball decently well.
I mean, he had 4 assists against the Pacers. He had 2 assists against the Heat. And then against the 76ers, he did add a jump out game where he had 7 assists. But yeah, it's just,
again, but 7 assists,
like
3
he's
points,
on the floor, though.
And 1 for 6 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3 for 26 minutes. Like he has more minutes than Jordan Clarkson and does way less.
Yeah.
I would honestly rather give those minutes to Trent Forrest. At least he will be good defensively.
Yeah, that's true. Well, at least he'll just put forth effort.
Yeah.
He'll try.
Anyways.
Okay. I agree with you. Let's see what happens over the next 10 games. I think the Jazz have the ability with the schedule to go 10-0. I don't think they will.
I'm thinking they go
could.
8-2.
8-2.
That's my guess. 8-2.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I think after these next 10 games, though, after these next 2 weeks, I think come Christmas time, we'll be able to sit down and say, okay, here's the season. We're pushing the halfway mark now. Who do we need to move?
What needs to happen before the trade deadline?
Who do we need to move? Because as it sits, I agree with you that the Jazz after last year should be in the Western Conference Finals. However, the team that they have this year, I was really excited at the beginning of the season. I think the team as the roster currently sits is not capable of doing that.
No.
So,
and I don't think it has anything to do with lack of talent.
No, I agree. So, well, yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We really appreciate it. Like we said, hit that subscribe button. All the donations will be made to Wyatt Our Warrior. You can follow him and his story on Instagram if you just type in that hashtag Wyatt Our Warrior, and then we can get those donations to him, help their family out. We'll see. Next week should be a much more interesting show after hopefully we get some wins, because wins are always more fun to talk about than losses.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Go Jazz. Take note.